There was a time when giving up felt logical, not dramatic, not emotional, just practical. I remember sitting there, staring at nothing in particular, thinking how tired I was of trying to explain myself, tired of hoping things would change just because I kept showing up. Have you ever reached that point where you're not even sad anymore, just quiet? That's where I was. People around me thought I was strong. They always do. When you don't complain, when you keep moving, when you smile at the right moments, people assume you're fine. But strength can hide exhaustion very well. Some nights I'd lie awake replaying the same question in my head. What if I stopped trying? Not forever, just for a while, just long enough to breathe. But even in those moments, something strange would happen. A memory would surface, a small one. A time I survived something I once thought would break me, and I'd feel this uncomfortable pause inside myself. Because if I gave up now, it would erase all the quiet battles I already won. There were days when nothing went wrong, yet everything felt heavy. Days when progress was invisible, when effort didn't feel rewarded, when hope felt like something other people talked about, not something meant for me. I didn't quit on those days. Not because I was brave, but because I was stubborn in a tired, almost accidental way. And maybe that's enough sometimes. The truth is, nobody tells you how boring resilience can feel, how uncinematic it is. No background music, no applause, just you choosing to continue when no one is watching. I used to think strength meant believing in yourself all the time. Now I know better. Sometimes strength is continuing even when you don't believe, when all you have left is habit, or curiosity, or a quiet voice saying, just stay. There were moments I almost didn't. Moments when quitting felt kinder than hoping again, when staying felt like prolonging disappointment. But I stayed. And slowly, so slowly I didn't notice at first, things shifted. Not everything, not perfectly, but me. I stopped measuring my worth by how quickly I healed. I stopped comparing my timeline to people who never lived my life. I started noticing small things again. How some mornings felt lighter for no clear reason. How I laughed without forcing it. How silence stopped feeling like punishment. One day I caught myself thinking about the past, not with anger, not with shame, but with understanding. And that scared me, because healing isn't loud, it sneaks up on you. And then it hits you. If I had given up back then, I wouldn't be here to feel this quiet peace. That realization stayed with me, not as motivation, as truth. One day, maybe not today, maybe not soon, you will look back at this version of yourself, the tired one, the confused one, the one who kept going without knowing why, and you won't feel proud in a loud way. You'll feel grateful. Grateful that you didn't let a temporary moment decide a permanent ending. Grateful that you stayed long enough to meet a softer version of yourself. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to be inspired. You just need to stay. If this story felt familiar, if it felt like it was written about a part of you that doesn't speak much, you're not alone here. This is Sentimore, a place for quiet strength, unspoken feelings, and the parts of us that keep going silently. If you feel comfortable, share your thoughts in the comments. Not advice, not answers, just honesty. And if you need more stories like this, stay with us. Sometimes, staying is the bravest thing you can do. There are days when nothing actually goes wrong, yet everything feels heavy. I remember waking up on one of those mornings already tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that sits in your chest and makes even small decisions feel expensive. I moved through the day on autopilot, did what was expected, said what was safe, smiled when it was required. And still, inside me, something kept whispering, how long can you keep doing this? People often think giving up looks dramatic, like a breaking point, like tears or anger or a loud goodbye. But sometimes giving up is quieter than that. Sometimes it looks like emotional numbness, like lowering your expectations so much that disappointment stops hurting, like convincing yourself that wanting less is the same as being content. That's where I was. I stopped imagining a better future because imagining felt like setting myself up for another letdown. Hope started to feel irresponsible, like touching a bruise just to see if it still hurts. And yet, even in that state, something inside me resisted fully letting go. I didn't call it strength. I didn't call it faith. It was more like a hesitation, a pause before ending a sentence, a breath before turning away. There were nights I sat alone, lights off, phone untouched, letting my thoughts run without interruption. And that's when the memories came back. Moments I had buried. Times I almost gave up before and didn't. Times I thought I couldn't survive something and somehow did. Not heroically, not gracefully, just barely. And that scared me, because if I had survived all of that, what did it say about this moment? Was I really at the end or just exhausted? That question lingered longer than I wanted it to. I began noticing how often I judged myself for struggling, how quickly I labeled my tiredness as failure, how harshly I spoke to myself in moments when I needed softness the most. No one else heard those words, only me, and they hurt more than anything anyone else had ever said. There was a strange comfort in imagining quitting, in picturing a life where I didn't have to try so hard, where I didn't have to carry expectations, mine or anyone else's. But even that comfort felt hollow, because deep down I knew something. If I gave up now, it wouldn't be because I didn't care anymore. It would be because I cared too much for too long without rest. That realization didn't fix anything, but it slowed me down. It made me question whether the problem was my weakness or the fact that I never allowed myself to be human. I didn't find answers that night, but I didn't quit either. And sometimes that's the most honest thing you can say about survival. You didn't win, you didn't heal, you just stayed. And maybe, just maybe, staying was already changing something, even if I couldn't feel it yet. After that, time started moving differently. Not faster, not better, just differently. I stopped asking myself when things would change. I stopped checking my feelings like a progress report. Every morning wasn't a test anymore. Some days were heavy. Some days were neutral. A few were unexpectedly gentle. And I let that be enough. There was a moment, small, almost forgettable, that stayed with me. I was walking alone, headphones in, not really listening to the music. My mind was somewhere else, replaying thoughts I'd already exhausted 100 times. And suddenly, I realized something strange. I wasn't trying to escape my thoughts. I was just walking with them. That had never happened before. Usually, I fought my feelings, or drowned them out, or turned them into something productive so they'd feel justified. But that day, I didn't. I let the sadness exist without demanding an explanation. I let the uncertainty sit beside me like a quiet companion instead of an enemy. And it scared me, because when you stop fighting, you realize how tired you've been. I started seeing how much energy I had spent proving that I was okay, how much effort went into being fine in rooms where no one asked for honesty anyway. I thought about all the times I minimized my pain just to keep things comfortable, for others, for the moment, and how uncomfortable it felt to finally admit that it hurt, not to anyone else, to myself. There were still nights when doubt returned, nights when the old voice whispered that staying didn't matter, that none of this would lead anywhere, that I was just delaying the inevitable. But now there was another voice too, quieter, less confident, but steady. It didn't promise things would work out. It didn't paint a hopeful picture. It just said, "You're allowed to be here, even like this." That changed everything. I stopped expecting myself to feel strong. I stopped waiting for motivation to arrive before taking the next step. I did things imperfectly, slowly, without certainty, and strangely, that felt more honest than anything I had done before. I noticed how often I had confused pressure with purpose, how I believed that if I wasn't pushing myself constantly, I was falling behind. But healing doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to patience. Some days, patience looked like doing very little. Some days it looked like saying no without explaining. Some days it looked like choosing rest even when guilt followed. I didn't suddenly love my life. I didn't suddenly feel proud of myself. But I stopped feeling like I was running out of time, and that relief was quiet but real. I realized then that giving up isn't always about stopping. Sometimes it's about turning against yourself, and staying, even gently, even uncertainly, is a way of choosing yourself back. I didn't know where this path was leading, but for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid to find out. There's a strange loneliness that comes when you start choosing yourself. Not the loud kind, the quiet one. The kind that shows up when you stop explaining yourself to people who never really listened. When you stop shrinking your feelings to fit into conversations that were never meant to hold them. I felt it often. Moments where I realized I was changing, but no one around me seemed to notice. Or maybe they noticed and didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't the same version of me anymore, the one who always pushed through, always said yes, always carried things silently. And that made people uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable too, because when you've lived in survival mode for a long time, peace can feel unfamiliar, almost suspicious. You keep waiting for something to go wrong, for the other shoe to drop. I caught myself doing that. Even on calm days, my body stayed tense, like it didn't trust the quiet yet. There were still setbacks, moments when old fears resurfaced out of nowhere. A word, a memory, a tone of voice, and suddenly I was right back where I started, questioning everything again. Those moments used to scare me. Now they just reminded me that healing isn't about never falling back. It's about not abandoning yourself when you do. I stopped demanding progress. Instead, I asked softer questions. What do I need right now? What am I avoiding feeling? What would kindness look like in this moment? Sometimes the answers were simple. Sometimes they were uncomfortable, but they were honest. I began noticing how much of my life had been shaped by endurance, how many choices I made just because I could tolerate the discomfort, not because it was right for me. Being strong had trained me to survive anything, but it hadn't taught me how to rest. Learning that felt awkward, unproductive, even selfish at times. But slowly, rest stopped feeling like giving up and started feeling like permission. There were days I did less than I thought I should, days I pulled back instead of pushing forward, days I chose silence over explanation, and the world didn't collapse. That surprised me. I realized how often I believed that if I stopped holding everything together, everything would fall apart, that people would leave, that opportunities would disappear, that I would lose momentum. But what I lost instead was constant tension. I lost the pressure to perform resilience. I lost the need to prove how much I could handle. And in that space, something unexpected grew. Trust. Not in the future, not in outcomes, in myself. Trust that I could face hard days without breaking. Trust that I didn't need to rush my healing to justify it. Trust that staying didn't mean suffering forever. I wasn't fixed, but I was present. And for someone who once lived on the edge of giving up, presence felt like progress. Quiet progress. The kind you don't announce itself. The kind you only notice when you realize you're no longer fighting yourself just to stay. I didn't wake up one day feeling grateful for everything I went through. That idea always felt dishonest to me. Pain doesn't suddenly become beautiful just because time passes. Some experiences stay heavy no matter how much you grow around them. But one day, quietly, I noticed something else. I was sitting alone, doing nothing important, when a thought crossed my mind without effort. I'm glad I didn't quit, because I was still here to feel this moment. I thought about the version of me who almost gave up, the one who stayed out of habit, out of exhaustion, out of not knowing what else to do, the one who didn't feel strong, didn't feel hopeful, didn't feel brave, just tired. And I felt something close to tenderness for that version of myself, for how much they carried without knowing why, for how they stayed without promises, for how they kept going without applause. That's when I understood something I wish someone had told me earlier. You don't thank yourself for not giving up because life becomes easy. You thank yourself because you didn't disappear before you had the chance to change. Not everything around you, but something inside you. I'm still learning, still unsure, still human. There are days when doubt visits again, days when old thoughts try to convince me that staying was pointless. But now I know those thoughts don't get the final word, because I've seen what happens when you stay long enough. You soften, you slow down, you stop punishing yourself for being affected by life. And one day, without realizing when it happened, you start living from a place that isn't just survival anymore. It's quieter than motivation, calmer than confidence. It's acceptance. If you're in that place right now, the tired place, the numb place, the I don't know how much longer I can do this place, I won't tell you it gets better. I'll tell you this instead. Stay. Not for the future, not for a promise, not for anyone else. Stay so you don't miss the version of yourself that hasn't arrived yet. This is Centimore, where quiet strength lives and unspoken feelings are allowed to exist. If this story felt like it understood you, take a moment, sit with it, and if you feel ready, share a thought in the comments, not to explain yourself, just to be heard. Sometimes staying is already enough.